I'm Nancy Kaplan. This is Other Perspectives. It's that time of year, time to take stock of the past year in Ann Arbor and consider the possibilities of 2013. Joining me at the table are Jack Eaton, long an activist on the city issues, and this year losing his bid for city council by a very slim margin. Stephen Kunzelman is serving his third term on city council representing Ward 3. Susan Polly is the executive director of the Ann Arbor Downtown Development Authority. And Ryan Stanton is the government and political reporter with the AnnArbor.com. Welcome all. So glad you could be here.
Glad to be here.
Thank you. Let's begin our review of Ann Arbor 2012 with your pick, individual pick, of one significant event or decision. And tell us why you picked that. You know, what was it about your choice? And we'll see if we have consensus or if we don't. And I guess, Jack, you were chosen to start, and then we'll just go down in alphabetical order. Jack?
Thank you. It's not one event, but rather the whole election cycle this year, I think. The August primary combined with the results in the November general election showed us that the residents of City of Ann Arbor have a change of opinion. We have Sally Peterson and Sumi Kalasapathy joining council as truly independent voices. And in the November election, we saw the public arts millage and the library bond proposal go down to defeat, which to me implies a change of priorities with the voters. I think that this is a major change in the political environment here in town.
Okay. Steve?
Oh, I'm next, yes. Well, I agree with Jack on many of those respects, and I think one of the things that we're touching upon there is a greater need for public trust, all right? So I just want to put that in there because I think a lot of what we saw in the change in the elections, both in the bonds and in the candidates, was public trust.
A lack of public trust.
We can call it that, but yes, the need for public trust.
Okay,
right?
the need for public trust. Okay.
But my issue, I think, for that was for the majority of the last year was countywide transit and that initiative. And for me to come out opposed to it, even though I'm a great fan of transit, whether it's primarily mass transit, but certainly we understand the need for mass transit and of that nature. But the countywide transit just failed miserably in its effort to convince Washtenaw County and certainly many of the citizens of Ann Arbor for a need for a greater tax to serve people in the country, and that just didn't seem to resonate. And so I'm glad that we're focusing now back onto the urban core, which is what I've always said that we needed to do. But that was the big issue for me.
Okay. Susan?
Well, for me, I'm going to switch gears a little bit from some of the political issues and sort of look at the downtown. I thought it was absolutely huge that this year we saw Menlo Innovations and Barracuda move to downtown. And they didn't just move downtown, but they moved to the State Street area, that town gown area, as a campus sort of abuts the commercial area. And it's a signature event for the important reason, not only that the cash registers are going to ring a little bit more in that area year round, not just when the students are there, but it puts them right up against where Google and Spark and all these other innovation kind of businesses are landing themselves. And we have the beginnings of what I think is going to become an innovation corridor. I'm very excited about what we might see, not just what's happened so far, but what that just might germinate.
Okay.
And I'm going to agree with all three of the previous speakers. All those are significant things that happened this year. And to build off what Susan said, the move of Barracuda downtown was significant. And I mean, that was partially because of what she didn't mention was the underground parking garage opening. Over 700 parking spaces added to the downtown, which now gives us room to think about what happens with these 5 city-owned parking lots in that vicinity along William Street, the Connecting William Street initiative that the DDA is undertaking. And now that the garage is done, we can think about what goes on top, whether that's a hotel, a park, some kind of office building, residential, what goes across the street with the Y lot. And there's going to be some big talk on that, and I think that was everything they mentioned, transit included. We got the ATA Blake Transit Center broke ground,
Right.
the new one, so all those things kind of go together, I think.
Right. to take your point, just a quick question, Susan. The parking that's on Liberty, is that full? Is that why they had to go to, Barracuda had to go to the new underground?
We are very keen on helping our parking system be as efficient and as spread out as possible. And when we heard that they were coming to downtown, we, the DDA, were underway with a demand management process. We were trying to move some of the permits out of the campus area into the new garage to free up hourly spaces near the entertainment, near the new retail that's coming in. And they were a part of that movement to move the monthly permits more to the core area and away from where's the shopping area.
Okay. And I have one question about the opting out of the Washtenaw County, the Washtenaw ride. And why was that done in a lame duck session? Because that really was a lame duck session.
Well, if I recall, the actual opting out occurred before the lame duck, or before the end of the lame, or I'm sorry.
But it was
before
the new
before the new
people
council took place. Yes.
Correct.
I'm sorry.
Correct.
Because the writing was on the wall. That was pretty clear. I mean, because once the new council was going to be seated, the votes were lined up and ready to opt out at that time. We still were going to make the deadline, even though we were given the misinformation about the deadline to begin with. But
Right.
we knew what we
Right.
had to do.
We were. Right.
I would suggest that perhaps Steve's being too collegial. And,
Right.
and if you compare the resolution that he originally drafted for the new council to pass with the one that actually passed with the old council, the difference is that there's this language about moving forward with some sort of plan. And so I think that the people who were responsible for pushing the failed plan were trying to salvage any portion of it that they could.
Right.
And so by hurrying it before those members of council left, they got to at least save face, let's say.
Okay. All right. So could we kind of round out by saying that you talked about trust, and would we call the defeat of the Washtenaw ride due to poor planning, that they didn't know that the communities in our community didn't want it, expenditures of money that I know that it was said that we learned from it, but it was well over $1 million spent on that.
Yes, a lot of money and a lot of time, and certainly a lot of effort. I'm going to be kind because I have a lot of opinions I think that I've already said publicly, but I do believe that there was certainly a misjudgment on a number of politicians, and I want to put the burden on the politicians, and because they're the ones that are representing the people, and if they don't know what the people want, or if they're thinking that they know what the people want, and they so misread the general populace, and really the fault is on the politicians. I was against it from day one, as Jack was at the county commission meeting when I actually spoke out against it. When they were initially bringing this up. I think it was in January of 2012, if I recall, almost a year ago. But and to that, there's a lot of, it's one thing for a politician to push their own agenda if you don't have a base, if you don't have a base, a foundation of citizenry that support that initiative. It doesn't matter how much you push things through, eventually it will collapse, and that's what we saw.
Right.
And this really goes to the theme that Steve originally mentioned, which is trust.
Yes.
Our elected officials are unwilling to listen to an opposing point of view to just an extreme. And so they block out any opposing view, and so then when it becomes overwhelming, they're totally surprised. And that's not how democracy works. Not only do you have to listen to the contrary point of view, but you actually have to go out and ask for a contrary point of view to test your theory, your desire, your plan.